Governor Cuomo jumped right on the Silver conviction and he released this statement, quote, "Justice was served, corruption was discovered and prosecuted, and the jury has spoken. With the allegations proven, it is time for the legislature to take seriously for the need for reform. There will be zero tolerance for the violation of the public trust in New York." Okay, Jeannie, I got my hip waders on a little bit, okay? He was the same guy, right? Who said, let's get rid of the Moreland Commission. I'm sorry, Larry, we got that clip? This was, again, the governor when he was running for office at the inauguration, boss tweet in the background. If you remember this clip, this was Governor Cuomo when he first became governor.
We will propose a Clean Up Albany plan with real reform. This is not going to be a situation where the people of this state will have suffered for years and lost trust, and now we're going to give them a watered-down or half-baked ethics reform bill. They're going to have real ethics reform. Okay,
Gene, that was nearly 5 years ago. I hear the words again now. But in the meantime, they shut down, basically Moreland. The only reason we got to the bottom of this, let's be honest, whether he's a show pony or not, was because Preet Bharara decided to bring cases against both the other two guys in the room of the three proverbial men. Where do you think we go from here? And do you think that right now the governor is saying he dodged a bullet, or that he could potentially be in some trouble?
I don't think we know. I mean, certainly I don't know if the governor is in any trouble, but I do think he continues to be in political trouble on this. Legally, I'm not sure, but politically, let's not forget that those statements almost cost him his second term, right? I mean, the New York Times refused to endorse him because he hadn't lived up to his promise to engage in real reform. And I think for everything positive that Governor Cuomo has done, and I do think he's done some very positive things, he ran on ending corruption in Albany, and he has not been able to fulfill that promise. And in fact, he has engaged in activities, as you mentioned, Moreland being one of them, the shutdown of Moreland, that are highly questionable. So I think for many Democrats in particular, this is a black mark on his record. So I think politically, this doesn't serve him well. But in terms of his statement about the current case, what else could he say except we are going to go down the path of cleaning up Albany? But again, we've seen no evidence of real movement.
In the last few weeks, I've had members of the legislature, including a good friend, Shelley Mayer, the Assemblywoman here yesterday, who says, really, things have changed in terms of transparency, in terms of outside income, in terms of disclosures, etc. You buy that? Or do you think it's really rearranging the deck chairs, and as long as it's a part-time job where you can have outside income, you're just begging for problems, maybe with a little bit more discretion than what we saw at this trial?
I think they have tinkered around the edges, and I think the governor has helped the tinkering around the edges, but they have not done a full-throttled real reform of what is going on in terms of Albany corruption. For instance, have they taken on campaign finance? Absolutely not. Look at the amount of money the governor himself raised, and from whom last time around. So, I think you look at any good government group and they will say he has done a little bit, but not nearly as much as he promised, or not nearly what needs to be done. And you talk to anybody, Albany seems, and not everybody up there, but Albany seems as broken as ever. And that's why we're seeing the top two, quote unquote, men in the room under indictment or found guilty.
Bill, Preet Bharara famously said, stay tuned when asked what happens next. A betting man would say that Mr. Skelos is in a healthy bit of trouble here. It certainly seems on the outside that it's an even stronger case than the one that Silver was looking at. We know how that turned out.
I mean, the wiretap evidence that's come in is devastating and very overpowering. But, getting back to the point you just made, listening to what the governor said in response to the conviction of Shelley Silver, he certainly basically did not come across as somebody who was at all concerned or fearful that Silver would have any information against him. I mean, you don't pull on Superman's cape, and if you think that Silver has information that could bury you, you don't come out as strongly against him. The second thing is, let's not forget that when the Moreland Commission was disbanded, a lot of the information that they had uncovered was turned over to Preet Bharara's office. So we don't know how much of the information that Preet Bharara used to make the case against Sheldon Silver came or was born out of what the Moreland Commission was doing. I don't have the sense that the governor is the least bit concerned that Shelley Silver can hurt him. That doesn't mean that Shelley Silver can't hurt other people in the state Senate. That's a whole different issue. But I mean, it's the elephant in the room.
But I think if Shelley Silver does hurt other people politically, I think that still ends up impacting the governor negatively. You can't be presiding over Albany this long, having run on a promise to clean it up, and everyone seems to be falling up there. And I know Shelley and some of these great people up there, but it is the leaders in the room who we've seen taken down, and it seems like a corrupt system to voters.
In
so
a
politically,
perverse way, I get the sense that, Jeannie, the governor could actually drive through legislation right now. Imagine if he proposed detailed proposals on changing it. It's the most perverse thing. People think they're crooks. My solution is pay them more, but make them not have a second job. Because let's be honest, I say this all the time, even to the good guys. If you're working 4 days a week and you're doing fundraisers at least 3 days a week at the chicken dinner circuit, who's going to hire you if you're an attorney to be their attorney? They're only hiring you for access. It's practical. Everybody knows it. So if you're hiring someone for access and influence, you're begging for trouble. So until the situation is just clean, right, you're going to keep having this problem. And I get this debate all the time with Brodsky and others, but I don't think it's more complicated. To me, in a perversity of all perversities, the same guy who shut down Moreland, if he wanted to, he could get whatever he wants passed right now, because I dare a legislator to stand in the way of the governor and try and stand up and say, no, I want to keep business as usual.
But I agree with you, and I think the question is, does he want to? And I think that's where he's been called out repeatedly.
Why wouldn't he, though?
Because he has had other really important, in his defense, things on the plate, like passing the budgets, getting the budgets on time. And he was trading those off. That's why Moreland was shut down in the first place. So, is this a priority now? Maybe, and maybe he's able to push it through. But let's not forget, he's dealing with Republicans in the Senate. He's dealing with Democrats in the House. This is not an easy case. I think he could do it, but if that's at the top of his agenda, it will get done. But that's been the criticism. You ran saying this was at the top, and in actuality, you had other things in mind.
Do you think that the system would change if there were term limits where people couldn't make a career out of being politicians? Not only state level, but federal.
I don't for the stated reason, Bill, that if somebody's going up there and they say, I'm going to be here for 8 years, 12 years, whatever it is, I'm going to do everything I can to pick the discipline that I'm in. And again, I hate to throw a whole blanket over everybody, because I know this sounds like some BS caveat. I really believe it. There's good people who go there for the good reason. However, there's a lot of guys, the Espadas of the world, whatever, right, who go up there and say, all right, I want this committee. I go in this committee. I'm going to be able to work in these folks here. I'm going to use my law degree, so when I get out of this place here, I got instant context, instant access for everything else. And some guys believe that's what they're supposed to do almost when they go up there. So I think in a funny way, term limits almost puts an accelerant to get this thing going here, to get the right people in front of the right committees, to give them the right access, to get them their votes on the floor. I'm with you, though. Anybody who thinks these verdicts and the one that's come is going to change everything in Albany, I think it's a Band-Aid. I think we'll see if the governor follows through. Bill, Jeannie, thank you guys so much. Okay, and we want to involve you in our conversation, so head over to Facebook and Twitter to sound off on our question tonight. Will Silver's conviction lead to ethics reform in Albany? Now, coming up next here, I'm going to bring Jeannie as well as her friend Karen into this conversation. Surprising stuff in the latest round of Hillary's emails that were released. Now, it's not so much classified or not. It's more about a private squabble about women having it all, and it's a private conversation that is now very public.